Good afternoon, Blues. Everton defeated today by Man City at the Etihad Stadium. 2 goals from Erling Haaland. Haaland has basically dispatched the Blues. A dogged performance, but unfortunately we've picked up nothing on the road yet again. Everton still rooted in the relegation zone. Delighted to be joined by Aussie Chris. Chris, obviously not the best circumstances, but our first stream together, Everton going down today. What's your main reaction from that?
Until that first goal came in, I was pretty happy with how we did. I really thought we would get blown out of the water. The score didn't really reflect reality, but 2-0. Great defensively, really well organized, but it was the only chance we had of winning was set pieces, and we didn't even get a corner, did we? So we just kind of have to, at this point, lick wounds with this one and plan for next week pretty quickly, I think.
100%. And the thing is, you spot on there, Everton didn't get a corner, and we scored half our goals from set pieces. And in fact, it took a set piece to sort of break us down, didn't it? It was kind of not the goal you would expect to concede to a City team that was almost like luxury football, almost a hand-picked team. You look at the lineups at the beginning of the game, Everton, on that note, starting back with Calvert-Lewin yet again, despite him not scoring. And goodness knows, I'm lost counting. I think it might be 17 now. Obviously, he was a bit unlucky last week. But the lineup had Young on the right, McNeil on the left. And on paper, you thought, this is okay. But you look at the City lineup, you're thinking, oh my God, how are we going to contain them? And yet we did for a very long period of that game. And we ended up conceding a goal from a corner. Do you want to talk me through how you saw that goal?
So I know Ryan was posting on X, Twitter, about it may have been not the corner. It wasn't a corner. It was a goal kick. But honestly, if those are pretty tough to pluck out unless you're doing VAR in every corner. So for me, I feel like we have to accept it. But really unlucky. I think Ruben won the header, but it went straight to the shins or ankles of Branthwaite, somehow deflected off Ake. Haaland on the back post free, but it wouldn't have gone to him anyway, except for a lucky deflection. He strikes the opposite foot with power, and it hits the forearm of Pickford. So it felt like we did about everything right. We just couldn't get it out cleanly enough, and well, that's why he gets paid the big dollars, the Norwegian Viking superstar, because he was clinical.
Yeah, 100%. Believe it or not, it was his first goal for 419 minutes in the Premier League. His longest scoreless run, and longest streak of unsuccessful shots. I think that it was actually Branthwaite that kind of just hit it. It felt like a little bit like schoolboy defending, but it fell at the wrong person at the wrong time. And for me, I felt like, the longer we went on, the more likely that City would just get some sort of lucky break, because I think we've seen how these things play out over a long amount of matches and years of watching Everton, is that we can do this sort of thing to teams and sort of suffocate them from scoring. And Everton were excellent. And Dyche obviously watched from up in the stand. He was communicating with his little microphone down to the dugout. He much prefers to be down there. But you can't fault Everton's organisation today, can you?
No, not at all. I think and I'm sure we'll come on to that, we didn't have much of an offensive streak today at all, but there were little moments, and yes, really well compact. I think Ghana Gay was huge for that. James Garner as well, but we were really good positionally. I was worried pre-match about the half space between the back four and the the midfield four, but that really wasn't that effective for them. They tried really hard for a while with Doku on the left. At the very beginning, right. Ashley Young and Godfrey were doing excellent there, and all of a sudden, Doku realized if I step back a little bit and run at them and get little dinks and deflections, Godfrey couldn't handle it. and then he had a couple chances. But beyond that, they really didn't break through until the substitutions started coming, where they realized Ruben wasn't making an impact. They had Akanji was sloppy and gave us a couple opportunities, but DCL did not take advantage of early. And once they brought Walker on, it added a bit more width, I think.
This is the City team, and I don't often start these streams looking at the opposition's lineup, but it's good context for Everton's defeat today, because we didn't offer attacking threat. I'm sure we'll come on to that, Chris, but look at this side. I mean, that is a side that would defeat many a team in many competitions, including World Cup type championships. You couldn't really handpick a better side. Doku was absolutely fantastic today. I know Godfrey kind of had a bit of a difficult game, but when you're coming up at a lineup that's that strong, we're expecting Everton to try and compete. And today, I thought that we were competitive, but not in the final third. But how much did we expect to get past this sort of side? And the embarrassment of riches and the players they have on the bench as well, versus fairly fatigued, tired, but yet dogged Everton side that kind of was almost believing that we could get a point. I didn't believe it myself, actually, Chris. I put in the channel, I said anything around 2-0 defeat from the start wouldn't be damage limitation for Everton. And it might not knock our confidence. If it goes beyond that, obviously it can start affecting it. When you looked at this team for City, did you think, oh my God, we're not getting anything from this game? What was your genuine expectation for this match?
I said 3-0 pre-match, and I think the best chance we had for any result was probably a 1-1, because I didn't see a way that they were not going to score. But I think Núñez was really underwhelming today for them, and that was a weak link where he was giving the ball away and giving us chances. And the only way I saw us getting anything was really from set pieces and showing up that Edison isn't as good aerially. And he is exactly right. 9 corners to 0.
This is it, really. City making 9 corners, Everton not making enough in the final third to really get a corner, and I think that was our only route to score.
Yeah, and we did milk a couple. I'm not sure if that's basically teased out a couple free kicks that were pretty soft, I think, in the first half, and they were the only set pieces I can really remember that were, and we didn't do much with them. There was one where I think early on McNeil really stretched out the taking of it, and it went straight to DCL, and he hit it straight to Edison, and I think that was really the disappointment for me, because there was some little windows on both channels, I think, where Ashley Young showed that they were saying rolling back the clock. He took on Doku and I think it was Ake on that side and crossed it through, but they were really limited opportunities. We kind of knew that. And what I was kind of worried about is that term of like rest defense, where the rare times we went forward, we left ourselves open. And that second goal in particular, man, was that a sloppy little play. James Garner, I think, lost the ball. And then Coleman was the same way. And very quickly, KDB has that opportunity to pass it through to Haaland. And Branthwaite didn't have his best moment.
I think you're right. I think you're spot on. It's just disappointing when we don't show any attacking threat. But I think it's like almost I expected that. I wasn't really expecting us to attack. But it's just we've not scored that many recently. But the only consolation I think is that we've not been heavily defeated here. And obviously City, this is another one of those awkward games. So if this was 2 games from the end, it would have been one of those where I think we bring up the league title as being a factor. But I think in this one, City have won the 10th game in the row. They've gone top of the league temporarily. Liverpool play Burnley. I'm sure there'll be fans watching this going, I want Liverpool to lose. But I think there'll be probably more fans saying, I secretly want Burnley to lose. Sorry, I secretly want Burnley to lose. But I just don't really care what happens, really. It's kind of like, I think the way it will play out is that probably Liverpool will beat Burnley, and then we're looking at this other game out there that's just kicked off, which is this Luton game against Sheffield United. I think that would pretty much seal Sheffield United's fate. Anyway, if you just joined us, Everton unfortunately have gone down 2-0. We're trying to keep a brave face. Obviously, we're very bitterly disappointed that the Blues have lost at the Etihad Stadium with 2 goals from Erling Haaland, and his first for a long time. City winning their 10th game in a row. Everton's next game's at Palace a week on Monday. We want your comments, and we're going to be here to go through them in just a minute. Should we go back through the first half now that we've seen Everton's 27% possession? It's not the sort of thing that I'm really particularly bothered about, but it was very much sitting in. I think from the beginning. Do you want to talk me through the first half? Were there any moments that caught your eye? I mean, obviously there were the moments for Doku down the left for City was quite impressive.
Yeah. So beyond that, I think what stood out to me, I think I remember it this way, and someone in the comments, if I get it wrong, I'm sure you can add to it. But Idrissa Gana Gueye, I think got it off a Kanji or someone, and it ended up at Harrison's feet. And then it ended up going to DCL, and there was maybe these are 2 moments I'm getting caught up here, but DCL had a couple opportunities to give it to McNeil or someone else, and he just kind of that lack of confidence that he had really hurt us. The other thing I thought was it kind of went in waves, but DCL would kind of go about it the right way on hold up. People would take the ball off him pretty quickly. Occasionally, he would hold it a bit longer, and we would have about 5 to 10 touches in little zones, and then we'd lose the ball again. And then it was everyone pull back and defend. But I feel like that's the only way we're going to get. We don't have the pace right now unless we do actually break the channels. Beto, we'll talk about second half in a bit.
And how much is that down to fatigue of other games and not being the biggest squad versus we're playing in a very strong side? I was full of praise of them against Goodison. I thought they played worse today. But I think City are exceptional at winning the ball back, and they obviously have a lot of aura about them. How much of it was Everton maybe not being fantastic versus City being City?
Well, if the other thing that really stood out to me in that first half was how irate Guardiola was getting. So City, in my view, weren't actually being City. The crowd was getting really revved up and annoyed. We were stretching out in stretch. Yeah, was it an injury? Was it and just slowing down the game? So I don't think City were City today. That's the other kind of disappointing thing. We can be proud that maybe we made City feel flat, but the flip side of that, if City was flat, this was the only way we had a chance, and we didn't show any punch in that final third either.
Yeah, 100%. I think that it's really disappointing. But I think when I saw the lineup, those 5, obviously the way that we're set up is fairly defensive, and you've got a striker there that, it's debatable. I mean, he's put Calvert-Lewin up front again, and fair credit to him. He's keep on giving the faith, but at some point he's got to get pulled, I think. Yeah. I think that Beto probably needs a start, even if it just gives Calvert-Lewin a bit of pressure off.
Yeah, Beto, that was something else I noticed almost immediately when he came on. Him and Onana did not time their passes well. It was embarrassing how offside they were. But he had the first one, well, it was offside. He didn't mean to miss it. He was thinking of the offside, whatever. And then he actually finally got a ball in the net, which was nice for his confidence probably. But Onana, they were on the bench together, had, 65 minutes to think about how they were going to what they were going to do and maybe link up play on the bench. And almost immediately they couldn't time a pass. If Beto and the rest of the midfield can actually time their passes, he's got the pace to go behind that DCL doesn't. But by the timing of his runs, what's the point of pace if you can't use it?
No, it's true. So, yeah, you make a good point about Guardiola. But that's just Pep. He got really agitated, didn't he? He was fretting about. He thought that City could turn it up a notch, but in the end, I think Some of it was down to the defending. There were some good performances in there, Everton defensively, and they were also quite well protected today. But I think there's not really many talking points from our point to score. But I think Calvert-Lewin had a sort of, it's like a quarter chance where he's sort of trying to lob the keeper, I think.
Yeah. Well, we lost on XG today, so Dyche doesn't have much to go on there. I think it was a quarter XG from probably the Harrison and DCL opportunities. So
for them, it seemed like Doku was the danger guy. He came down the left, and I think Godfrey really struggled. But how much was it just being Doku? It's just kind of breathtaking.
Yeah, and I was trying to watch that interaction because that's where because Foden on the right isn't really a winger, so he was sort of switching between right midfield and the number 10. So really, it was shift to Doku, back to the middle, switch to Doku, and Doku got past 3 or 4 times in the half that really stood out to me. But that's the thing, when you're testing that same interaction, if Doku gets past, it sticks out like a sore thumb. How can Godfrey miss it? But I actually thought he did better than I thought he would. But the other thing, and I think people brought this up about Godfrey, and I think in Liverpool, they're missing Alisson and Joe Gomez right now with a sickness bug as well. So I'm curious if that's what it sounded like for Godfrey. He was subbed for being ill, and that's where the 55-minute came in.
And of course, it was vital Everton got to half-time 0-0 after all that good work. But we had a slight scare when Tarkowski basically blocks a shot towards the end. I think it was like 47 of the 48 minutes, but there was a quick VAR check. I thought, oh my God, not again. They can't do this to us. And of course, it was one of those. But because it's Everton, you think, oh no, they can give it. They probably would give it.
And it was Craig Pawson too. It was the perfect recipe. Away from home, a big team. Pawson's reputation with us. It wasn't a handball. It shouldn't have gone to VAR, but technically you've got to check it. So I guess the right decision was made, but that was scary for me too, for sure.
And then the restart, there was a sort of a flash shot from Calvert-Lewin. It's way out. And City obviously needed to raise their games. Do you think City stepped it up second half, or did you feel like the second half was similar pattern?
Well, I felt the speed of their passing was a little. I'm sure Pep got right into them, like saying put more under it. But I don't think that you could tell they were moving the ball faster, but nothing was really changing for a little bit. I think them getting Nunes and Akanji off, bringing Walker to the front onto right back to add the width that basically made him kind of a proxy fullback winger, and giving Mikalenko something to do, definitely had an impact there. And I think KDB came on at that same time. So there was a little bit more class in the midfield for passing. It didn't really feel like with all their subs that they really broke us down. That's the funny part. It was just this kind of lucky, awkward deflection goal that really broke it up. They can look more dangerous, but we know Man City can look dangerous, but it didn't feel like they did that much to deserve it.
They're very patient. It does concern me that if they're going to kind of take the mantle from the other side to the top, such as Liverpool, that they are a bit overly patient, but it was just the way it was. Do you feel like, looking back, that we should have just gone for it a bit more, or do you think we would have got opened up and maybe come out 4 or 5-0 down?
Well, the way that we tried to get back into the game, they scored their second from a scenario where we overinvested. Overinvested.
The second goal, it was Haaland sort of runs through on goal. He's put through. Is it Rodri that puts him through?
I think it was KDB got the assist, so I think it was him that did the pass.
It's a through ball, and he sort of passed Brampsway, and he's got the confidence of obviously breaking that kind of duck and scoring earlier on in the game, and then obviously he's clinical. He kind of steers it in with his left foot, and 2-0. You don't think there's a way back. But it was at that point that Everton had almost got to the sense of having a little bit more territory possession in the City half and looking a little bit more likely that they could find an equaliser. Maybe it was me being a bit over optimistic.
I felt that too. There was a little wave before that second goal that and I heard on the commentary, they were like, "Oh, this is Everton's best period. We held the ball in their half, didn't do much with it, but it felt more promising." And then just like that, that one.
And how much of that was helped by the double change? Young and Calvert-Lewin both came off. Onana and Beto came on. Did you think that helped with that kind of momentum shift?
I think that was part of it. And I know people are asking about Godfrey. I think the Godfrey to Coleman swap with I think Godfrey was sick, they were saying. So when Coleman came on, that didn't make an impact. I thought, surprisingly, I was worried that Doku would outpace him. So that wasn't a sub that caused any issues. I think, as you were saying, a little bit later on, maybe it was getting tired legs, but we had to break out of that either the low block or we had the front kind of 6 players all pressing them in their half. But and outside of those type of 2 scenarios, when we had the ball, we're not clinical enough and good enough skillfully to not have to overinvest players and put ourselves in a vulnerable position for a turnover. And the second we lose it, like as we were saying, and it happened quite a few times, silly little passes. Credit to City for how well they can close us down, but we're really sloppy once we get kind of right around the 18-yard box, final third, and that rest defense or awareness of, okay, do we have enough players in the right position that can take on Haaland or KDB through the middle? Didn't feel like it, but that's going to be the only way we can do it. But is there a different approach than what we do? Because it didn't work today.
That's arguably the hardest game of the season. I think most people knew that if we got a draw from this, it would be like a win. But unfortunately, we've gone down. If you just joined us, thank you. Welcome to our stream. We've been live. Watch it back if you get a chance. We've just been going through up to about the 80th minute through the match and some of the raw reaction from this. It was actually Kevin De Bruyne who came on to sort of send Haaland down. He kind of brushed past Branthwaite and then sent a low finish past a despairing Pickford to send City 2-0 up. And then, of course, Everton did have that Beto opportunity was offside, and then there was 10 minutes of added time, and I think there wasn't an awful lot to say about that other than the fact that I've never normally known 10 minutes of added time. It seemed a bit ridiculous, but it was what it was. And of course, Everton then losing by 2-0. So, goal difference, if it does come into it, wasn't too, if we'd lost 1-0, that would have been like, oh, we only lost 1-0. So, 2-0, I think it's acceptable. Of course, no defeat is acceptable, but the context has to be taken into account. So I think it's probably about time that we started to go through some of the comments, Chris. But obviously, anyone's just joined us, we welcome more comments coming in. But yeah, hello to all our regulars. Whiskey Ash says the ponytail scores too. They were only things he did all game. Arsenal and the lads who played so well up to that point.
Yeah, I feel that.
Yeah, well, that's what he's there for. He's a goal scorer, and he's kind of a, I don't know. He's some player, isn't he? Gary, coffee bum. You probably needed a coffee to wake yourself up after that game. Of course, it's another one of those early Saturday spoil the weekend jobbies. Hard work and effort all game, but in the end, it means nothing. So yeah, it is hard work. Chris, how much is it a factor that actually Everton have a little bit longer? They're playing early on a Saturday and they play on a Monday evening next. Do you think that might help us just sort of get back to, optimum level of pressing and penetration that we can?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, maybe I'm being a bit too critical here, but we aren't having midweek matches right now. Dyche put a lot of emphasis on fitness. Yeah, we don't have a big squad, but to say 1 week and an extra day should get someone ready, okay, yeah, maybe, but is that really the difference that one day? I guess I'm not a fitness analyst to say, but I feel like maybe that has an impact, but I think we should be revved up and ready to go. I know Onana's had he had 30 minutes of match fitness today. In terms of injury news, do you know if Decore will be back next week, or is that still...
I don't think we've had any confirmation of that, but as I said to my dad before the game, he is the player that I desperately want to see back in Everton's side. If you're planning to avoid all the scores, please look away now. I'm not going to put them up, or maybe just plug your ears. They're all 0-0, apart from Fulham, who are winning against Bournemouth. That's the first home game since they played us, and that was a goalless match with 40 shots that I was at. It's crazy, the Premier League at the moment. The number of goals that were last week, and then all of a sudden, no goals, but still plenty of time in the game. David says, honestly, I'm not upset. I thought the team grafted hard and came out the game with no injuries. Well, and a goal difference that was massive. Well, I don't know about injuries. We just don't know about Godfrey, but I think with Coleman, we can cover him. Maybe he'll be back. We just don't know. But Neil also was on the floor. But obviously, you know, he continued. But yeah, it was generally not too heavy in terms of the goals against department. Stuart thinks that actually his departure from the game did actually change the game. Playing against strikers, we played well, contained them, but needed more up front. No support for DCL and not decent ball to him. Yeah, I mean, it's always hard. I mean, you've got a player that's kind of not scored a lot of goals on his own against the champions at the Etihad, and service is kind of, I don't know. I think they have half a mind on whether they're marking Foden or one of the other City players rather than how much we can go forward. You know, if we're 3-0 down at half time, the game's gone. Even 2-0 down. So, you know, we stayed in the game. But probably Peter. Hi, Peter, you're regular. Good to see you back. Yeah, we had a shit show up front, but we don't get in the box to even be a shit show. So, you know, was it a corner? It was 50-50. I think we need to kind of get in with a microscope and probably break it down to like a split second. You're looking at a photo finish sort of thing first to try and decipher whether it was a corner or not. It's really hard to tell. Of course, with Everton, it's always going to go to the opposition, isn't it?
It certainly feels like it, but I think I mentioned that before. Like, if we are really asking for VAR type review of every corner, I don't know how much that impacts the pace of the game too, because that might be those kind of situations when you zoom in on a camera, we can catch it, but that's not easy to catch real time with different angles. Is the linesman in the right spot? So I think that's always going to be a little bit tough, even if it probably wasn't a corner. Yeah,
there's always something. Ryan, our founder, says, every time we play City, we do this. We focus so much on defending, but then panic when we get it. Some of that's down to just general technical ability, and also I think that they are very good at closing down. They're just so well drilled. Look at Pep on the sidelines, even after 20 minutes. He says that's rather than switch the play and get the numbers forward, we do nothing. Yeah, I mean, I feel like we've kind of got to the stage where we're almost accepting that we're not going to do anything. How many times have we actually gone to City? Are we talking about going back to like the Baines and Cahill days before we've actually got anything going forward against them?
Yeah, that's kind of, and maybe there was the Davies goal that we can bring back, but typically, yeah, we're talking right at the beginning of the money coming into them, that kind of period where, and I think I remember that it was quite a fun period. It was probably the end of the Moyes era, maybe the first season of Martinez, when they were starting to build up their squad. They were trying to compete for titles, and we were actually either getting a draw and that we were like their bogey team for a brief period.
Yeah.
Hasn't been that way since Pep's been in.
No.
But that was it Mark Hughes back then? I'm trying to remember who was managing them at the beginning of this reign.
I can't remember off the top of my head.
But people have referenced Eddie Howe for Newcastle, kind of like it. I'm just trying to remember who that was.
I don't know, but we've seen that. I think it's really been since then that I thought we would get a result there. And you're right, now it's getting harder. And of course, they've got Haaland, which is a bit like the icing on the cake. Yes, he hasn't scored a lot for them. And I think everyone knew that today was likely to be the day, because Everton are just that team where somebody who's out of form ends up scoring, or somebody who's transferred away ends up scoring. It always happens. The Blues says in response to Ryan's comment, says, why is it that we give the ball away down to panicking? Or maybe he doesn't. Maybe it's just a general comment. City just blocking all our passing options. Didn't have the pace to get in behind. So, there's kind of two sides to the story there. But, we don't think that we would have got much out of this game if we'd been further down at half time. So I think the tactics was very much about trying to hold in for a 0-0, I think. Let's just be honest.
Yeah, and it was working until the unlucky, but it's bound to happen. And when these unlucky scenarios happen to Everton, other teams have a clinical striker. We don't. You think of those opportunities at Fulham where Beto was kicking it into Godfrey, and you're like, just get the ball on the net. Certain teams just have that clinical striker. And I think, was it the Blues just there was saying part of it, and I remember this against Arsenal when they closed us down, Declan Rice in the middle there, like we couldn't actually hold the ball. Part of it's the skill in pressing and trapping us into any team into a false sense of security. Onana occasionally has the ability to keep passes, but it's usually basic and passes it backwards. Garner is more the pivot player that goes forward, but he's still a little bit rusty, and he needs other players with him to keep it. We had little zones, or like usually on either right midfield or left midfield, right by the halfway line. We held the ball briefly, and they let us have it there. But that's it, And it was like, wow, look how good we are at holding the ball for 5 touches. That's
almost like they gave us too much. They gave us a lot of respect in terms of they didn't really give us many chances. It was really only when they scored that we could have more than a second on the ball. Tazul says we need some points back, otherwise we're in big trouble. Well, I think everyone knows that, but Everton before this 3 draws, we're almost becoming the draw specialists. Is not enough. A win has to come from somewhere, Chris. Everton play Palace at home. Is that the game, or is there too much pressure on us to think that has to be the game to win?
Well, we only have so many matches left in the season, and better start now. We can all hope for these 10 points, but we're also, as Everton fans, kind of cynical that we'll actually get anything back from it. The only thing we can control is the points that we put on the board right now. Maybe we get points back, but Crystal Palace has been that team for us that we beat them 3-0 last season at Goodison. We had that really emotional 3-2 at the end of the previous season, and we've either taken draws or beaten them for a bit now, and they're flat. If this is the chance, yes, if we put too much pressure on ourselves or put on the players, we can. I know we don't want to go back to the Frank Lampard blaming Everton for giving away a goal against Wolves last minute, but that feeling of like, hey, this is the time, guys. We expect something from this match. We didn't here. We can be satisfied as being the hard luck losers on a 2-0 away to City. That they're the champions. They deserve, like, it's okay. If you had to lose a match, it's that one. But now Palace at home, they're feeling stale. They have almost no attacking threat without Eze, is it Gahey and Elise out. We can probably get away with playing on the front foot, having holes defensively, because no one can exploit us anyway. So this is the match to me.
I'm sure they'll find a way. We'll be previewing that match. It's a Monday night football late kickoff on the 19th, so a week on Monday. So Everton have 9 days or so to kind of pick themselves up. And as fans, it's not ideal because we can't really do anything about this. And one of the things we can't do about is what's going on in the other games. And of course, Liverpool are playing Burnley, Luton, Sheffield United. If you just plug your ears, if you don't want to know the scores, it's currently goalless in both those games. Forest play Newcastle later on. Everton, of course, losing today against Man City. That leaves us in the bottom 3. We've been asked about the goal difference. We're -6. Forest have -13. Burnley -23. Sheffield United -40. Luton -10. I don't know what you think about Luton, Chris, but they seem to be flying. At some point, it's just got to stop. How long?
Yeah. I mean, you can either say it's a lucky run or they've found a formula that works. But if it wasn't for Everton being in the position we are, I would love Luton to stay up because they're gritty. They've got some recycled players. Like, I mean, yes, it's Barkley and Townsend, but they've got these players that are fresh, enthusiastic. We haven't seen too many of them before. It's a really nice or amazing Cinderella story that should sell the league as, the championship is a tough place. Look, occasionally it can work up here, but what's amazing is I was thinking just before you mentioned that we should be fine on goal difference. And now you wait, Luton, if we lose a couple more matches and Luton win one more, they're beating us on goal difference now. Don't worry about Burnley. Don't worry about Sheffield. If Burnley start pulling it around, we're going to beat them on goal difference, and we're ahead on Forest right now. But I feel like it's almost us against Forest, and Burnley are working their way out. But maybe that's just the vibe of the week.
Yeah, and I think that there's a lot of people that probably want to start following what's going on in those games. They are 0-0, typical Liverpool not breaking through against Burnley when we want them to. Maybe if you don't, sorry. On this occasion, I'm sorry. I'm just really for Everton to survive more than anything. And if Liverpool do whatever they do, then so be it. But Luton are currently goalless at home to Sheffield United. And what that means at the moment is that if it stays like that, Luton will be just 2 points above the Blues. And I would definitely take that at this point, having come out of that kind of round of fixtures. But I somehow think that Luton will find a breakthrough. Last week, they scored 4 at Newcastle. And then it's 0-0 now. There's still plenty of time in the game. Half an hour gone. But there's not many goals. Not compared to last week, where I think it was the record Premier League number of goals. Everton just got 14 games left. As many of the clubs do. Some are in action right now. Others play tomorrow. Of course, there are games tomorrow that don't really concern Everton. West Ham play Arsenal, 2:00. And then Villa play Man United, and that's at 4:30. There's been loads of games rearranged for TV. We'll come on to that on our preview against Palace. But I think going back to the comments, lots of great ones coming in. I mean, just generally, I think that people are quite philosophical with this performance in context of kind of the season. This is a game you don't really be expecting it. But Peter says you can't rely on the appeal. We actually need to pick up some results. So I think that's what we need to do. I think Decore is big for me, Chris. It shouldn't be about one player, but since he's been out, we've just not looked the same.
Yeah, well, financially, we don't have the luxury of options right now. Dan Juma was out injured because that was the one we were thinking maybe he would be the pace, the edge, our version of a Doku to like run past and test the defense. Do you know if he's what his situation is? Because he's the only other option, I think, for a number 10. Like for a match like next week, he can break the lines, and we don't need that extra defensive-minded midfielder. It seems like the perfect match for him to come in.
Yeah, it seems like a sensible one for him to maybe come into this lineup. But yeah, no, we don't know. I mean, obviously, Everton, the transfer window obviously ended a week or so ago, and he's still here, and the players, they've managed to keep hold of this core group. At least we've not got any superstars, but I don't think we've got like the egos that we had. There's a few of them have been knocking around over the last few years. The Blues reckons Decore will be back before Dan Juma. I hope that happens. I don't know what it is about Decore. Obviously, he's got that side of extra stride and ability to be box to box, but the lease of life he's had under Dyche, and to be able to sort of arrive late to the box and link up play from midfield to attack has been absolutely brilliant. And I think his goal scoring under Dyche is either 1 in 3 or 1 in 4. But it's a good rate, and I think Everton massively miss him. But we shouldn't be dependent on one player. But we are in what we are. We didn't spend a lot. We all know why. It's all to do with the financial fair play. I'm one of these fans that are kind of anxiously looking at this Luton Sheffield United game. Of course, Sheffield United are really, really struggling. And
they may have just scored Sheffield, but it's one of those like on SofaScore live updating.
Okay. Well, I haven't got that quite yet, but I was seeing that possession-wise, Luton have 64% of the ball, Sheffield United 36%. But at risk of this becoming a watch-along, I'm sure it's covered on some of the major, and other types of ways of following that game. And I'm sure Blues will probably want to put the kettle on and sort of find out what's going on. And on that note, Chris, I think we're going to wind up now, but it's been an absolute pleasure, and I hope to see you on a future stream. And for everyone watching, follow Everton. Make sure you tell your neighbour, the postman, the cat, your wife's girlfriend, whatever it is that you want to tell, whoever
Even
it
Liverpool
is.
fans, we'll take it.
Yeah, we've got Liverpool fans that follow the show, and we have one or two that appear as guests. I think that Liverpool game is going to get postponed when they inevitably get through to the quarterfinal of the Cup, and it will probably end up being so close to the end of the season that I think we can start biting our nails now. But apart from that, unfortunately, Everton have gone down today to City, but we've been able to sort of look at it in the context of the season, and I suppose we go again. So from me, from Chris, from everyone at the Follow Everton team, I'd like to thank you for your company this afternoon and wish you a good weekend. Up the Toffees.
Bye, everyone.